And less than a week before President Trump leaves office, he has earned the distinction of being the only president who has been impeached twice. The impeachment story is splashed across newspapers' front pages nationwide. It's a headline everywhere after the House accused the president of incitement of insurrection. 10 Republicans broke ranks, joining all the Democrats to vote yes. No House Republicans voted to impeach the president last time.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi has signaled she will send the article of impeachment to the Senate for trial quickly, although it has not arrived as of this morning. Nancy Cordes covered yesterday's historic debate on Capitol Hill. Nancy, good morning to you. What happens now?
Well, Tony, the Senate's Republican leader, Mitch McConnell, says he will not bring the Senate back early for a trial. It's expected to return midweek next week, which means that phase will only get underway in earnest once President Trump has left office and Democrats have taken control of the Senate. It would take a 2/3 majority in the Senate to convict President Trump and prevent him from ever running again. In a letter to his Republican colleagues Wednesday afternoon, Leader McConnell said, "I have not made a final decision on how I will vote, and I intend to listen to the legal arguments when they are presented to the Senate."
Those in favor say aye.
Those arguments will likely sound a lot like what we heard in the House as members voted to impeach President Trump in the same chamber where they cowered in fear 1 week ago.
There must be consequences for last week's treason and sedition.
To understand why this moment matters, you have to understand the tension between congressional urgency and constitutional procedure. Impeachment is a formal process, but the Constitution does not require it to move slowly. When Congress believes the threat is immediate, the process can move with extraordinary speed. We saw that in 2021 after the attack on the Capitol, when the House moved from crisis to impeachment vote in just 7 days, making it the fastest presidential impeachment in American history.
All right, on September 28th, the House held its first hearing in its impeachment inquiry of President Joe Biden. Over the past few years, though, you may remember, the House has twice launched a similar inquiry to impeach former President Donald Trump. Let me show you how the impeachment process works. First, a House committee will launch an investigation to determine if the president engaged in one of three offenses. This is where it all begins, either bribery, treason, or high crimes and misdemeanors. In this case, it's the House Oversight, Ways and Means plus Judiciary Committees. Now, after all the evidence is gathered, the House Judiciary Committee
The impeachment process can move much faster when the House leadership decides the moment demands it. If the Rules Committee approves an expedited path, if the articles are brought directly to the floor, and if debate are limited, the formal procedure can be compressed to match the urgency of the crisis. That is what the before morning framing really means. It is not just a dramatic phrase, it is a demand that Congress move at the speed of the threat itself. But whether that urgency turns into real action depends on the politics of the moment. Whether leadership believes the votes are there, whether the procedural shortcuts can hold, and whether moving that fast is politically sustainable.
What purpose does this gentleman from Texas seek recognition?
To address the House for 1 minute to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, and still I rise to note that tonight I have called for the impeachment of Donald John Trump, President of the United States of America. He is an abuser of presidential power. He has called for the execution of members of the House of Representatives, of this very House. He has demeaned members of the judiciary. He has conducted himself in office such that persons are now threatening members of the judiciary, threatening members of the House of Representatives, threatening members of the Senate. Donald John Trump, by his conduct, merits impeachment, trial, and conviction in the Senate of the United States of America, and should never hold any office of public trust ever again. I yield back.
Members are reminded to refrain from engaging in personalities towards the president.
The 140 votes connected to Al Green's impeachment articles are what give this latest impeachment fight its strongest constitutional foundation. Those votes created a formal record inside the House itself. They show that this was not just outrage, not just speeches, and not just political theater. When 140 members voted on the House floor, they were using the constitutional power given to Congress. They were acting through the official rules of the House and placing themselves on the record on one of the most serious questions any lawmaker can face: whether the president's conduct has crossed the line into impeachable abuse of power.
A Texas woman is charged with threatening to kill the federal judge overseeing former President Trump's elections interference case in Washington. This is the judge, Tanya Chutkan. The message was left on her voicemail. Suspect Abigail Schrei of Alvin, that's near Houston, is behind bars with the bond hearing set next month. Now, she admits to making that call, but says she had no plans to carry out anything that she said. Now, she also threatened to kill Texas Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, all Democrats in D.C., and all people in the LGBTQ community.
The fact that nearly 2/3 of the Democratic caucus backed these articles show how serious this moment had become. These were not 140 lawmakers simply objecting to Trump's politics. They were putting themselves on the official record, saying the conduct described had crossed a constitutional line. To them, threats against lawmakers, threats against judges, and the real-world danger that followed were no longer normal political conflict. They were signs of an abuse of power serious enough to justify impeachment. That is why the before-morning urgency matters. It is built on what formal vote and on the record those 140 members created.
On this vote, the ayes are 232. The nays are 197. The resolution is adopted. Without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. Congratulations.
One of the most powerful parts of a modern impeachment fight is the way it unfolds in real time. Live coverage turns floor speeches, procedural battles, webcam updates, and leadership statements into Capitol erupts moment for viewers watching from home. On paper, the impeachment process is procedural. It involves committee action, floor debate, amendments, motions, and the strict parliamentary steps that guide major House business. None of those steps is dramatic by itself. But when they are broadcast live for hours, with members speaking, leaders maneuvering, and vote counts changing, the process begins to feel like a full-blown constitutional crisis playing out in public.
Our democracy is what is at stake. The president leaves us no choice but to act, because he is trying to corrupt, once again, the election for his own benefit. The president has engaged in abuse of power, undermining our national security and jeopardizing the integrity of our elections.
What the public is watching is not just another political fight in Washington. It is a constitutional process unfolding live in front of the entire country. Floor speeches, vote counts, leadership statements, procedural battles, and late-night debates are turning ordinary House procedure into a national drama. That is why the comparison to January 2021 matters so much. After the attack on the Capitol, Congress proved that impeachment does not have to move slowly when the threat feels urgent enough. The House has tools to speed up the process. Leadership can limit debate, the Rules Committee can move quickly, votes can be scheduled at unusual hours. When the political will exists, the constitutional process can be compressed to match the urgency of the moment. But urgency is not the same thing as victory.
Meanwhile, the House has blocked an impeachment attempt against President Trump. Lawmakers voted 237 to 140 yesterday to set aside the measure. The resolution came from Congressman Al Green. his second attempt this year. He accused Trump of threatening federal judges and denounced Trump's comments, criticizing members of Congress who called on service members to disobey what they called illegal orders. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries and his leadership team said in a statement before the vote that impeachment demands a thorough investigation process. The lawmakers argued the Republican majority had not carried out that process. Still, Democratic Party leaders stopped short of formally opposing the resolution and chose instead to vote present. In total, 47 Democrats cast present votes. Republicans dismissed the effort as a distraction and warned Democrats would try to impeach Trump a third time if they take control of the House next year.
The 140 votes connected to Al Green's impeachment articles created a real political record. Those votes show that a large group of lawmakers believed Trump's conduct had crossed a constitutional line. They were not simply expressing frustration, they were putting themselves on the official record and saying the House should treat the conduct as serious enough to justify impeachment. But 140 is not 218. That is the central problem.
The yeas are 237, the nays are 140, and there are 47 voting present. The motion is adopted without objection. The motion to reconsider is laid on the table. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, the unfinished business is the vote on passage of H.R. 3628, on which the yeas...
To actually pass articles of impeachment, Democrats would need a House majority. That means either Democrats would have to join the effort or enough Republicans would have to cross party lines. Until that happens, the before morning demand is more than about pressure, urgency, and momentum than a guaranteed result. Still, the pressure matters. Every speech, every vote, and every public statement builds the record for what could come next. January 2021 proved impeachment can move fast when the politics align. The question now is whether this Congress can turn outrage into votes and whether 140 can become 218.